Okay, your turn.
Yep. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Great. And I appreciate the Dutch pronunciation on the last name. Thank you. So yeah, I guess we're already started. Great to have you here, guys. So this is a quick presentation about the sandbox. So different topic from what we just saw. Maybe a quick show of hands. You mentioned that the sandbox was famous. I'm happy to hear it. Has anyone here heard about the sandbox before? Please raise your hand. Great, happy to see that. Second question, who has ever played in the sandbox? Okay, less hands, but I still appreciate. And who has built in the sandbox? Awesome, okay. Hopefully, if you don't understand these questions, by the end of this presentation, you'll have a better idea of what I meant. And maybe you'll be inspired to either go out and play in the sandbox or create or both. So let me check if this works. Yes, it does. So here's a quick intro just to give you an idea of what we make. Basically, we are a platform for people to be able to create their own games without necessarily the need for knowing how to code or being an expert in 3D modeling. The reason for this is because first, the sandbox was originally a 2D game on iOS that really started as a way for people to share their experiences. You might be familiar with games like Mario Maker, for example. It was a bit more involved than that, in that you could really create your own assets. You didn't have to use the assets that were already in the platform, and then you could share them with basically different people throughout the platform. It had 14 million downloads. It was a very popular game, but the creators didn't really get rewarded for the success of the platform. And so when blockchain came along, and when especially NFTs came along, the co-founders of the sandbox decided maybe we have something now to actually engage the creators more and make them really benefit from the contribution they make to this platform. So on top of that, what is very clear today, and this is where the graph comes in, we are now on the cusp of having a majority of the world population as digital natives. I think most people here have still know a less digital life, but for most people who are a little bit younger, at least than myself, it's become really second nature, or even, shall I say, first nature, to actually be online, be able to share their thoughts directly online on social networks, and are definitely familiar with Web 2.0. So that also means that we're growing now in virtual worlds, and whether it's physically growing because people are still young, or whether it's older people like me, we're still growing in that we're also learning a lot of new things. You can really have at the within the palm of your hand all the knowledge really that's out there, and that also means that we spend over 12 hours per week just in virtual worlds, whether they're different social networks or games and things like that. And that's even more than watching TV today. So based on that, really, the thing is, what you notice is that we engage a lot more than we used to. Again, watching TV is a passive pastime, and now with, again, social networks and interactive experiences such as video games, most people are now super involved in what they do. And we had a panel yesterday talking about this a little bit more, but it means that the communities are a lot more deeper because they're more engaged. They are actually creating stuff. And that also makes younger people really aspire to be not just passive consumers, but actually creators, to actually participate in whatever media they're interacting with. And so here what you see is that 75% of Gen Z wants to be basically creators. And the other thing that's coming along that's a little bit more recent is the idea of digital ownership. One example, if you're a gamer, is things like having grinding a game up to a point where you get a special armor kit or a special weapon, or even buying skins for a game like Fortnite or Call of Duty, or all kinds of things that could even be rewards, such as just like prestige rewards, like being like a platinum trophy owner on PlayStation on certain games. Those are become really valued to people who are involved in these interactive media. And this is the first step, really, that's been around for a while. Now, what we saw, and as everybody knows here, I think, the blockchain kind of supercharged this concept of ownership, where you can literally own it now through NFTs and through blockchain and verifiable means. That means that the actual spend on NFTs in 2022 was actually adding up to $40 billion. So our mission, I'm sorry, I'm going to step out here to make sure I don't mess it up. Our mission is to empower the creator generation to build new forms of experiences based on true digital ownership. And the aspect of this, really this empowering creators, mean we have to make tools that are easy for anyone to use, that you shouldn't have to graduate, an art school. Great if you did, but if you didn't, you still have a chance to create stuff. Or that you didn't have to, take years of programming to learn how to create stuff. If you did, again, all the better, but if you didn't, you can still create in the sandbox. Now, this means that we have created an ecosystem, and I'll get into that in depth a little bit more later, that really is at the crossroads of content creation with, the ability to create your own art and assets that you can then use in the game, and NFTs. We are also at the crossroads of culture with many brand partners that I'll be giving you a little snapshot of in a second. An economy that's developing as the platform works, and it's decentralized so that, again, creators can benefit from their contribution to the platform. Blockchain, obviously, as I mentioned before, and experiences, so engaging people through a new kind of entertainment. And that can also be done through avatars, which is, again, as mentioned before, a new sort of identity that has come along over the last few years or decades, first in video gaming, but now you can see everywhere. You can see, whether they're PFP's actual NFTs or even, profile pictures that are inspired. Some are even generated by AI and things like that. People are reinventing themselves online. So real quick, this is a snapshot of the partners that we've already worked with. So, we have Atari in the gaming industry. In crypto, we have Bored Apes, we have Binance. In music and art, we have, many deadmau5, Diplo, Paris Hilton. Entertainment, we have, the Smurfs, The Walking Dead. We have all kinds of industries, basically, that have, expressed a very strong interest in developing things in the sandbox. And mainly because I think that the common thread among all of these very varied partners is the idea of trying to reach out to their audience and make themselves really engaged in a more participative way than just, again, having them consume whatever they're selling, and making sure that they engage with their community on a deeper level. So the sandbox itself, we are an ecosystem, as I mentioned before, but it all starts and ends with this map that we've created, which is basically a finite amount of lands. There are 166,464 lands total. There won't be any more ever. It's just a finite amount to create this sense of digital geography. We talk a lot about digital ownership, but why does that work? Because, again, through the blockchain, you can have this proof of ownership of things. Well, you can really do that in a different way, in a very similar way, with a concept of geography. Because if you own a land in the sandbox, it's immutable. You can't move it from one place to another. There's no centralized authority that allows you to do that. You can't get into our code and change that. It's on the blockchain, and where you are on the map is your land is tied to a coordinate that has, a very specific place, and that means you have neighbors. That means where you are actually matters in a way, depending on what kind of community you want to be part of. And I find that super exciting personally because, I've always loved exploring digital world since I was a kid playing on video games and stuff, even offline before the internet was even really a major thing. And what's crazy is you think about the idea of having that on a much more broader level, I think is quite interesting. And it's not in a centralized universe like you would have in World of Warcraft, but really it is in something that is very universal, and that, your neighbor could be, a land from The Walking Dead or Snoop Dogg, or even just other creators who you can start interacting with and maybe build synergies with. And that makes the sandbox really a great forum for people to share their different perspectives and also creativity, but also just make it a huge mashup for cultures and everything else. So really the idea is, what you can do in the sandbox today is play games. We're live. We have both curated experiences that are starting to come out again because we just upgraded our engine. So it's been live for a couple of days now. But on top of that, I think it's very important to mention that for a while, again, we're still in alpha stage, so it's still early. But we have curated experiences that we're distributing basically for our users, but also we're starting to open for landowners to be able to publish their own experiences without us curating them. So right now we have this QA process, and people can apply if you have a land and you've already created your own experience to actually get early launch basically, and that will allow you to start sharing your experience with your community. So playing games, having work sessions. We've worked with fashion brands before to design your own create some collections, and so you can also create your own in VoxEdit and GameMaker. I'll get back to those in a little bit. Museums and galleries. We try to also make sure that we become ambassadors for Web3 cultures and make sure that we can showcase all the great things that are happening in Web3 in terms of art. Travel and tourism, we worked with tourism offices around the world who wanted to showcase a country, a region, and recreate like a miniature version of that and express the culture, the local culture for that. Obviously, housing and all that stuff that goes with creativity, really, including social hubs, of course, with multiplayer experiences and where people can go and we've done a few concerts with Snoop, Paris Hilton. We're developing more features for those concerts to be even more integrated and engaging. So I was just talking about the GameMaker and VoxEdit. So those are two tools. So everything is free in the sandbox. There's usually this impression that getting into Web3 is always costs money. Well, I think it's not true for a lot of things, and that's including the sandbox. We have obviously a game client. If you want to play the game, you just download it on sandbox.game. Same, if you go on sandbox.game and go in the create section of the website, you'll find two download options. One is for VoxEdit, and the other one is for GameMaker. VoxEdit allows you to create assets, such as all the things you see here have been created in VoxEdit. That little DJ booth, those little platforms, everything there. You can create that, and it's very easy. You don't need any really prior training. You can just go and start building those things together, putting those things together in like 3D Lego, really. And then what you do is, this is actually also in VoxEdit. It allows you to rig and if you're familiar a little bit with 3D design, rig your character, meaning you can define exactly how the character will animate, where all the joints are, and then you can animate them with keyframes. On top of that, the GameMaker, once you've done all of that, the GameMaker will allow you to put those assets together into a comprehensive experience with a starting point, enemies or challenges or puzzles, and obviously an endpoint once you've finished. And this is all created. You can create all of that without really needing to type a single line of code. Everything is intuitive, and it's made to really create logic gates through a graphical user interface. So again, this allows you to go starting with creation, engage game designers, even fashion designers, as we've done before. People who are into VFX, architects, all those people. I mean, we've worked with all kinds of different people or companies that are in those different industries that are just interested in developing these. There's actually a house builder in Miami who created a version of his house in the sandbox as well while he's building it in the real world, and it's kind of fun to see. He's made a lot of like Easter eggs, that are hidden both in the experience and in the actual IRL house. Those things I think are super interesting, and it's just the beginning of what things are going to become. Play, obviously we have the gamers, the coaches, as games get already a little bit competitive sometimes in the sandbox, so you already have like people online giving tips and tricks on how to get better at the game. Collectors, people collecting NFTs. guild managers. So I think that's a little bit work in progress, but like this is coming. Discovery, again, as I said, learning new cultures, discovering new experiences. As mentioned, we have partners from all over the world to a point where, if you're not, you might be a fan of, Captain Tsubasa, who's like Olivier Tom in France. If you're a fan of those, might just want to get in the sandbox for that, but then you might run into, characters from The Walking Dead, characters from IPs you might not know of, like Pororo, which is a very famous Korean IP. All of those things are made on purpose so that people can start really learning about new experiences and new cultures and really opening their minds. Business, obviously, with people who become virtual real estate agents, landowners, NFT resellers, you name it. I mean, all those things are also, possible in the sandbox. Community also, obviously, building communities is really key to UGC, user-generated content, and building really a strong creator economy. So throughout the history of the sandbox, we have already put in a lot of effort in empowering our creators, as I mentioned before, and that also goes through a fund, through which we spent money to actually be able to incubate some of the best builders who have come to us and wanted to express interest in building in the sandbox. So, again, whether it's through just NFT sales organically, by having them create their NFTs and then selling them on the marketplace, it generated about 10 million sand. We also have different studios that we, again, helped and commissioned. They submit their game design document and their project, and then if they get approved, then they can get started in building in the sandbox. On top of that, what's important also is just the idea of creating an avatar. So through the sandbox, what we want also is people to be able to start expressing themselves in new ways. And so one of the things is when you look at all the different NFTs that we have avatar collections, we have all kinds of assets. And again, we're going to open more features so that people can more easily create their experiences, but also their avatar collections, and make them seamlessly easy to actually put together and put on the marketplace and share with other people. With avatars, again, we have this kind of, as you can tell, voxelized aesthetics, because everything to make things very easy to build. Like we make the idea of having the sandbox being completely voxelized. This is Snoop in Gucci, so that was actually made in partnership with Snoop, but also, people create their own avatars, obviously. What we want to do also is create some sort of interoperability system, and that's why we also have a lot of bridged collections. For example, starting with World of Women, but also many different Web3 collections like CyberKongs and all others. We started creating collections that if you only have a PFP, and some of those collections originally were just, PFPs, i.e. just pictures, JPEGs. Well, now if you have that NFT in your wallet, when you connect to the sandbox, it will automatically allow you to use that character as an avatar. And this is an example of, Snoop, an original avatar from the sandbox. But again, if you have any of those collections at this stage, and even more now because we've bridged since we've made this slide, because we bridge a lot, Moonbirds, People of Crypto, Bored Ape Yacht Club, Gutter Cats, whatever you have among those collections, you can go in the sandbox and use whatever NFT you have from that collection. It will automatically load up your character, which I think is really cool and means that, again, the sandbox is a metaverse. It's not the metaverse. We're trying to really bridge among other worlds, whether they're completely new to Web3, just like a lot of the brands we mentioned before, or really Web3 native collections like these. I think this is actually brings me to my next point, and it's very important, is when we start working also with brands that might not be familiar with Web3, we want to make sure that they understand what the value Web3 is, which is really, it's based on these 5 pillars, which is giving value to fans and loyal users. Again, we want them to be able to participate in how they experience the brand within the sandbox. Reward them also for their contributions, whether it's through again, creating collections and things like that. If those brands work in partnership with builders, we want to make sure that the builders also, through blockchain, also are rewarded for that. Embrace NFT culture. What does that mean? One example that I like to give is we have if we have a new brand, for example, coming in that might not be, might be an anime brand or even a film franchise. Instead of just going in and saying, hey, we're going to make like this NFT collection and all that stuff, we usually start with, like, for example, a game jam, which means we reach out to our community and also beyond to find people who are, really excited about this brand or IP, and tell them, hey guys, now's your time to actually invent something based on that, and try to get inspired by whatever it is that we want to work with, to make sure that we can really give them control and a real proactive participation. And that just makes, again, engagement into the brand that much deeper, because what you realize is people spend, sometimes hours and hours and tens of hours building something and putting a lot of effort and a lot of love into what they like. And I think there's this engagement that I think is very valuable also to understand for anyone really within the community to understand better how everything works. Encourage user-generated content. That already pretty much covered that. And put creativity first. Again, we don't want to become another passive form of entertainment. We want to create a new form of entertainment where people are really participating in building this almost like new dimension for our partners and our creators. So again, these are examples of game jams we've had in the past, with The Walking Dead, with the Smurfs, with CyberKongs, with Atari. So and Polkadot, as I mentioned before, Deadmau5, and again, indie games, AAA games, and everything in between, but also series, films, and Web3 collections. So here are a couple. So I think usually there's like this really cool beat, but we'll do without it. These are a few examples of things that we've built with our partners. This is Gucci Vault's Land. So Gucci wanted to develop something in the sandbox that expresses their this vault, this concept, and it's all obviously been created within the sandbox with a tool that I mentioned before, and allows you to explore again this brand in a brand new way. I think what's really interesting about the sandbox is, if you're, for example, like a musical artist, by working in the sandbox, I have discovered bands, and instead of just, going on Spotify and listening to their music, I actually got to play their experience for the first time. That was my first interaction with their creation. And what's interesting is that, of course, you get to hear the music while playing, but also you see and you really enter their world in a brand new way. And that was the case for me for Avenged Sevenfold, where I ended up like in this old Western town, with all kinds of like crazy architecture and kind of characters and everything. And it's just like a very different experience from just going on Spotify and listening to something passively. This is, and maybe it looks like it's freezing a little bit. This is a Paris Hilton activation we did with her also, but I think, let me see if I can reload the slide and see if it works. If it doesn't, I invite you guys to check it out on our YouTube channel. Oh, there it is. It's starting. So this is a fun experience we made with Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton is very much engaged into Web3. Like, she's been doing a lot of things, and same thing, I actually tried out this experience, and it was a brand new way for me to experience that, which was really cool. I got a couple more examples, and then I think I'm going to have to wrap it up. This is Rabbids for around the Lunar New Year. We partnered with Rabbids from Ubisoft and created this experience to celebrate Lunar New Year. And it seems like it hasn't cut off. It was just playing a little bit strangely. And yeah, Spinning Records again with a DJ contest that has been made. And that we actually also had an experience around that and created a contest for people to be able to do that. There, we got sound now for this one. So we'll finish with a little bit of music, and I think I'm going to have to wrap it up in a couple minutes. So again, especially when it comes to concerts, we want to create even more features. So stay tuned on our socials, at the Sandbox Game, and also check out sandbox.game to see how we can keep building the metaverse together. This is, again, only one of the metaverses that are out there, but I think it's important for us to keep engaging and to create bridges between every community within Web3 and beyond. So feel free to check it out and speak to me after this so that we can see how we can build this together. Thank you very much.
Great. Amazing.